Hey, can you tell me how to be creative? Greetings and welcome to an idiot's guide to creativity. I've got my tea right here. I have also prepared a little list that I have on my phone so we don't get too sidetracked. And overall, I'll be talking about the things that I've learned either from myself or just things that I've learned from others, and I apply to my everyday life on how to be creative, how to gain creativity. It applies to all different categories in which you can be creative. It can be writing, art, music, all sorts of things. To some, I'll give specific examples, like I'm more of an artsy person, but I also do lots of other creative projects, and I'll give examples with that. But generally, this applies to everything, and so you'll get a better overview. I'll try, if I remember, and I'll figure out how to do so, to leave a times table, first of all here, and some timestamps. That's the part that I'll try to figure out, but we'll get there. All right, so my list is ready and my tea seems about to be done. Let's get to it. Okay, so for starters, I'll probably put this message in the beginning of the video to break it down to ya. Not every person has the same amount of creativity, which is quite obvious, yeah, but that does not mean that creativity cannot be acquired. Some people, like myself, are on the more creative side naturally. My parents both work in creative fields, and I also loved creative games in my childhood, so it would only make sense for me to also be creative. So genes are indeed a factor here. Other people are rather on the more logical side, or are physically more advantaged, etc. So, does that mean that they cannot be creative? No. It's not that you're either creative or you're not. We are not talking black and whites here. It's a gray scale, which you can also change and work on. So many children are so creative in their childhood and then completely disregard that ability in their adulthood. If I stopped my creative work after I was a child, my ability would have spiraled down. So, with this video, I'll give you some suggestions on how to fuel your creativity, how to be more creative, and things that can overall help with that, but do not necessarily have to apply in all cases. Nonetheless, I hope that you'll be able to take some things out of it depending on your situation, fish out something, try out some things, see what works best for you, and what you need in the moment. Yeah, I hope that you'll enjoy. Alright, so the first thing that I've written down, and it is probably the most important thing, people that struggle with art block, with just a creative block overall, this might be the most useful thing that many artists also apply, is inspiration.
Squidward, we don't need television. Not as long as we have our imagination.
Yeah, that word. So, you should always seek inspiration. But at the same time, some people might have the fear, I don't want to copy something, I don't want to do it exactly like them, I want to create my own ideas out of myself, and that is very valid, that is very important, we'll get to that more. But at the same time, everything was supposedly already created. So even if you think, oh yeah, I have this very big original idea, it's patterns of what you already know, what your mind has already kind of figured out that you might have gotten to yourself to that idea, but there's no thing that wasn't created yet. So there's, in the world that we're currently living in, it's very, very hard to create this big old thing that's never been seen before. That is extremely difficult. So do not fear of creating something similar to something. Like when you write a book, you can, like for example, reuse a story, which won't make it necessarily very interesting, but you can add your own things to it. We have a fictional world. It takes place in a similar fictional world, and you just add your own spices to it. You can keep adding more and more things until it becomes something more original. At some point, you won't be even able to determine that it was inspired by something, but I'm never telling you to just straight up copy a thing and then call it yours. That is not the purpose of it. We obviously create out of patterns, and at times we just need this idea, we need the juices to flow in. Inspiration is so important. Like, what I like to do most is just go on Pinterest. That is the place where you get all sorts of ideas. There's so many things, so many places that you can get inspiration from, and not only social media, you can also use AI to your advantage. Using tools to your advantage is not a crime. Okay, I'll say it. Using tools to your advantage is never a crime. Get inspired. You can use that, you'll consume in order to produce. You can use ChatGPT, for example, and ask if it can give you some props, some ideas, some material which you can work with. Then you'll get the overall idea, you'll get the inspiration behind it. For example, you can ask, hey, I'm writing this story, can you give me this, that, and that prompt? Can you give me an idea? What kind of attributes should it have? Or just generally, hey, can you tell me an idea of what to do? Or you can just, straight up go on Google. For example, not too long ago I was making an art project, and then I just went, I want this specific clothing, but I just don't have this image in my mind. And then I go up, Google it, and bam, there's many results. You can look through the things and then say, this, that, something, one of those. Yeah, the possibilities nowadays are endless. It's not like you can never access it, but also do not fear to go to the old methods. By that I mean books, okay? Especially if you're into literature or something, or even if you're a music person, you can go back to books, okay? For music people, then we have music notes. That is probably still used quite often, but also for literature, you can either use inspiration by reading things, or you can gain inspiration by useful tips or other tricks that are also mentioned in the books, like, because reading is so helpful. Most of the time what you read stays better in here than what you see, like for example this video. So that's why we have the timestamps. You can go back, let this video also be an inspiration, and then do as you will with it. But I do suggest reading, but it is fine. I understand that some people, perhaps it is not for them, and that is fine. The result is still to produce something of your own, okay? And that is my next point that I want to tackle. Don't overuse, produce. Don't overuse, produce. Right now, I've been advocating for different types of inspirations, yeah, like Pinterest, like hell, even YouTube. But with nowadays society, nowadays our biggest enemy is consumption. We tend to consume and it leads to overconsumption. And I don't only mean social media, like you scroll on TikTok for hours. I also mean, for example, clothing or anything really. We're being quite wasteful. And so in all sorts of areas, it's more important that you produce more than you overuse. I'm not sure exactly where I've heard this, but I've also seen this, that some people no longer have the autonomy to create something out of themselves and only create using tools. They're meant to help you, not do your work for you. Like the most recent example that I've noticed is that I've also written it down. That is how much this frustrated me. And the most recent example is my own arts course. I'm an arts major, and my God, sometimes I understand not every person has as high of a creativity bar. Like some other people, some are more creative, some are more intelligent, and I would consider myself as quite a creative person. But as an arts major, I find it unbelievable with how many people just tend to drive away from their own ideas and just utilize something that takes their work for them and just does it. It's fine to go on Pinterest, but if you ask AI to create something fully for you and then it does so, that is not your work. You might have put in some letters, you might have put in some words for that to be the outcome, but you are no longer doing the work behind it, nor the creative flow that you should be putting in. I'm sorry, but that does not help your creativity. You must distinguish that at some point it can be also not only helpful, but at some point it can damage your creativity. Your mind is lazy, and I understand. You always seek the fast ways out of things. That's normal. But what we must realize, creativity is an important thing that we have, and we must try to maintain it. So when I see people from my course that we had to admit what inspired us and how they were inspired, they just let AI create their work for them. And I'm like, you are an arts major. This beats the whole purpose of it. And if you want to do that, then I'm sorry, this video is sadly not for you. But if you want to figure out how to stay creative, how to be creative, how to let that creativity thrive, stay tuned. So it is way more rewarding when you create something yourself. When you don't take someone else's work and then label it as yours, when you don't let AI create something for you, it is much more rewarding when you've created the piece fully knowing, hey, I did it myself. At the same time, inspiration is not wrong, but please know that you're meant to create. Yeah, and with this, don't consume, create, or consume less, create more. Please try that, because the more time we just spend on TikTok or whatever, on YouTube watching speed paints, listening to music, reading other artwork, which is not wrong, you can enjoy those things. Obviously at a healthy amount, yeah, always make sure to keep it at a healthy amount, but you must realize you should put in more output, because the longer you watch something, the longer you procrastinate, that leads to procrastination, yeah, you won't be able to put in that work. And it's not about like perfecting your art or art in any type or form. It's about putting it out. Put it out. Okay, do not fear. So for how much longer are you going to consume and never create something yourself, never put anything out there? The longer you do it, the less you'll have the motivation to. And it's not about finding something perfect that you'll see and then you'll be inspired. It's about when you want to create something, you look for a little bit of inspiration, but eventually you have to put in the work and put it out there. You will not support your creativity if you only consume and never put it out. Because when you create something yourself, you'll be able to understand, oh yeah, this works, this doesn't, oh yeah, I'll have to improve on that. That is always subjective. It differs from person to person. If you see a person effortlessly draw a circle, that does not mean that you will also effortlessly draw a circle. You'll have to put in the work, you'll have to try it out yourself, and more of that later on. But my next point would be motivation and comparison. Let those ideas, let those people that create inspire you, yeah? But motivation is a thing, comparison is another. It's okay to at times compare your art with someone else's and realize, oh, my art has made, I might have these mistakes, I might be doing that wrong, but never let that demotivate you. Because once you stop, you've lost the entire race. You must continue. Do not let yourself get demotivated just because someone else is further in this line of art that you're making, no matter the art. Because this person has put in work. And if you also wanna get that far or even further, you're able to even become better. Just don't give up and stay motivated, stay on track. Then you even might be able to overcome that person. Just always remember, if you keep seeing these perfect pictures, this perfect art, perfect photography, whatever it is, and you'll be telling yourself, oh, I could never do that. Well, guess what'll happen? You won't do that, because then you just keep telling yourself, I won't be able to. But once you let yourself take that inspiration and get inspired, at that point you can tell yourself, oh yeah, one day I'll also be able to do that. That is what'll keep you thriving further. That is what'll inspire you and keep you going. You do not have to antagonize people. Do not give up halfway through because you believe that you won't make it as far as someone. You never know for how long they've struggled to achieve it, and realize that it is also subjective. Some people do it with ease after a bit, some people it takes more time. But what you want to do is improve for yourself, and intrinsic motivation is what you'll need. Otherwise, I fear that it is not long lasting, it won't live for long. Alright, a change of scenery to make it more dynamic, and the next thing I've labeled is express yourself. Never be afraid to express yourself. As you can see, I would consider myself more of an alternative person with a more alternative style, and I understand that for some people it is very difficult to express themselves through clothing. But the moment you do it, the moment that you leave those conformities behind, thinking that you need to fit in, once that moment arrives, the less problems you'll have being more creative. Because you won't have that doubt in your mind, that cloud of judgment floating above you, thinking, oh yeah, how can I make something that everyone likes, that everyone finds agreeable? And perhaps you don't realize it directly, perhaps you can just be limiting yourself in your everyday life a bit. Like, I won't wear this and that because that is not appropriate. That is completely alright. But if you wear something just because everyone else is wearing it, you are not leaving yourself room for creativity. And you don't have to necessarily be a person that likes to dress up, that likes to experiment with style. But the main point is, once you allow to express yourself, even if you say, oh yeah, I'm not into looks, but you still show it and you just don't wear what everyone else is wearing it, you're free. You're freeing yourself from those norms, so to say. You're freeing yourself from conformities. And that allows you the space to just do whatever you want. And then you won't have that blockage that's telling you, oh, I'm not able to create this, I'm not able to create that. And that allows the creativity to just flow in. That would be quite neat, wouldn't it? So if you have some doubts and some certain uncertainties, like I'm very sorry if you go through this or experience this, like social anxiety, where you don't want to be noticed or this and that, you must remember that this can also hinder your creativity. One method, if you just cannot completely let go of it, if you cannot try and change that about yourself through specific other methods, if you are unable to find a solution for that at the moment, another method is to just create for yourself when you know that nobody is judging and nobody will ever see this, so to say. Because if you think that, oh yeah, everyone will see this, then you'll fall into perfectionism and you'll fall into that idea again, oh, is this appropriate? Is this alright? Can I do this? Will that be okay? Express yourself. Give yourself room to express yourself. And don't really follow other people's opinions or things that other people do. If you want to express yourself, go for it. And with that, you also have to leave actual room, not just the room that you have in here, like within yourself, but also the creative room. For example, my room, I also express myself through that. It's not only about clothing style, but also, for example, the space that you're in. If you have a creative space with things that you've created yourself, that you came up with yourself, you'll get inspired more easily. You'll get motivated more easily to be creative. And that is what it is all about. So expression, you'll need that. And the next point would be, don't stress it. We'll take a breather, don't stress it. You're struggling with creativity? Hey, well, guess what? The best ideas come randomly. What my art teacher once told me, she always gets her best creative ideas as she showers. So, and that's the thing. When you focus on something and you will be like, yeah, you have to create, I have to this, I have to do that. Come on, creativity, get it. Then it won't work. Don't stress it, like don't stress yourself unless you want a rushed, not certainly good outcome. I understand if it's like, we'll take an arts class, for example, and you're in the middle of an exam, you might have to use that skill that you'll immediately be creative. But if you do something for yourself, if it's like a project, or if you have more time for things, just leave it be. And eventually an idea will arrive, right? It will, as silly as it sounds, it'll magically appear. You might be laying in bed, you might be walking outside with the dog, you might be just hanging out with your friends until you suddenly, boom, get this idea. And it just comes out randomly. And then what you have to do is write it down, because I'm sure most of the time then you won't be able to instantly bring that into life. For example, you cannot just abandon your dog to go do that idea. So go ahead and write it down. Without writing things down, this video wouldn't have come to life. As said, I've noted all of the important points that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, I might have lost a majority of the things that had inspired me at that moment when I got the idea. But in order for that to not occur, be precise about it, write it down. Write it down like you would have to remember it in a month, but at the same time, up and foremost, more to say, never stress it. You know you can write things down, and then you can look over it, and then you'll be in that idea again. Of course, it's best to act upon something when you suddenly got hit with that idea, because that's when you're also suddenly inspired to do it. But when you have a schedule or when you have a deadline, just use some days and do little by little. Like write some things down, and then at the end, when you have gathered all of those ideas, you can also exclude some if you realize, oh yeah, that's not exactly possible, but as long as you have written them down and you didn't stress it, you're good to go. Good morning. It is me the next day. I now have a different cup of tea, and that is the perfect transition to the next point that I'll make. You need rest. The point is, get rest. And so I've had my slumber. It's your turn. It's your turn to rest. Whether you like it or not, you have a creative battery and you need to charge her up. It always differs from person to person, but especially sleep is important because while you sleep, your brain processes all of that information that you witness throughout the day, and it helps kind of bring it all together, puzzle it together. And at times you can also feel overwhelmed if you didn't sleep enough. So make sure you get that sleep. And no substitutes, okay? I don't want you drinking coffee or sipping on energies, whilst in reality, you need to get the sleep. You need your sleep. And what you have to keep in mind, the creative battery, you require rest, but rest comes in different forms and shapes and forms. It's not only sleep. I've heard there's like 7 ways of rest. I won't go into detail about that, but you need to realize what you need most at the moment, so you can fill up that creative battery. Obviously, as mentioned, sleep is important, but for example, you have to figure out, hey, maybe I need to socialize. You can also rest while doing physical activity. That is also a type of rest. Your body often tells you, hey, I've been sitting for a while, I need to go ahead and move a little bit, or the opposite of that, obviously. In that way that I'll lay down somewhere, I need a moment. But there's also like a social battery that correlates with the creative battery. So at times you just need to get away from the people because it can be overwhelming, or you just need a moment of space and need to think. But even that goes the other way around. At times you need to socialize. So we have different types of rests that we need to take care of, which correlates to our creative battery. And at the moment you'll have to figure out what exactly it is that you need. Like overnight I charged my camera, I charged its battery, and I charged my own battery too. So now I can proceed. And that is what you'll also be doing. Okay, so the next thing on the list is planning and organization. If you want a specific advice on how to start your creative ideas, might there be just this one specific method that is universal? Do not turn off on me now when I tell you this. Planning and organization, it's an individual approach. Alright? And what do I mean by that? I'll give you an example from my own experience. We have to start in art class this painting project. And the first thing that everybody does and that our teachers tells us to do, he lets us know, hey, you can start sketching out the thing. There's a portrait of a person and what we have to do is just paint it. And everyone starts sketching out and I'm thinking like, well, but I just want to start. I'm not really feeling like sketching this out and for me it is time consuming. So I'll ask him if that's possible. He says, oh yeah, sure. And while everyone is just sketching things out, you know, to get the proportions right and everything, to have an overall idea, my overall idea is that I just start painting. And then, since I'm doing it with acrylics, if something's wrong, I can just paint over it. I'm trying out brush strokes. I'm looking at the picture overall, and I just have a go at it. And was my end result worse than others? No. Quite the opposite, in fact, and I also saved a lot of time. Because I didn't do what is regular, but I did what has driven me and I knew that what has helped me to succeed in the end. So it is always individual. If you want to sketch out first and you'll perform better with that, then do so. That's your way of organizing, that's your way of planning. But if you want to just have a go at it, and immediately start, because then you still have this original idea or you still have this flow in you, then also go for it, as you can change things over time and then you'll also notice some mistakes or whatever, what happens along the way. Let yourself get carried. It's always different for every person and it can also differ from project to project. And what is important is you'll have to realize what's best for you. And I've also written down that you have to work with materials that inspire you. If you want to be creative, if you're not getting that sparkle of creativity within you, then ask yourself, have you been working with materials that do not really get you going in that creative flow, that don't really provide you with an inspiration? When I'm feeling art block I absolutely love sketchbook tours on YouTube. And there's this very specific channel that I absolutely admire, who also, the person there also provides you with feedback and ideas and just overall gives you that inspiration what to draw or how to go with it. If I remember correctly, it was Sketchbook School with a K. I absolutely love that fella. And he's like also a big inspiration with me and he aids me with creativity. And what I noticed in his videos, when I always drew prior to that in my sketchbooks, I wasn't exactly feeling the pencils. But then he's mentioned that he was using the specific brush pencil or whatever. Or I've also seen other artists use markers, and then I got myself these markers too. That one brush pencil I now have on the wish list because I know that'll inspire me to draw more. I then bought myself some Copic markers and it was way more fun because I love to work with color, and instead of always using some plain pencil, when I got the access to more color within the playgrounds of my sketchbook, I was way more inspired to create way more. I got the possibility and I also got the ideas flowing in because I worked with something that I loved. So you have to realize what's best for you, but for that you also have to not be afraid to try out new things. If you want to figure out something, you have to try out different methods. Perhaps if you never tried a tool yet, you won't know whether you like it or not. When then you try it out, it might even become your favorite. So never be shy to try out something new, even if it might not turn out great at first. Whether it's in art that you get to sculpt things for the first time. I've never did it before and I realized that is so much fun. The outcome was really great too because I was feeling it, I was passionate about it. You have to really relate with the materials, so to say. You have to find yourself within them. Or when you're creating music, you can use a specific instrument that you love working with. That'll get your creative fluids going. Always work with materials that you love and never shy out to try out new things, because that is what'll give you the intro perspective on things and that'll help you figure out what you love doing and with new things, you might also gain new ideas, which is wonderful, which is what we try for and which is what creativity is all about. And that leads us to the next point of trial and creation. I love that name, trial and creation. Instead of trial and error, you have something new and you want to try it out. And it is okay if it might not look like you had imagined in mind at first. It's about trial and creation. And with this, my point is, you have to fight perfectionism. It's not about perfecting something. It's about you finally getting something out there. And up and foremost, it's about the result. It can differ. It cannot look like the way you have intended to. But the most important thing is that you have created something. Think of it as it's better than that you have created something which you can later on improve and use as a stepping stool, than if you haven't even touched a paper, touched the microphone to record something due to fear that you might not be good at it, that it might not just look like the way you intended it to do. Don't focus on the end result. Focus rather on the process. The most important thing is that you have fun within the thing that you're creating. And that'll also give you that inspiration and creativity that you so long seek for. When you have fun in something, it comes naturally. And with that, you're able to succeed if you just don't simply focus on perfection. And over time, especially when you do it over and over again, and yeah, that kind of breaks the idea of having fun if you know that you must do something. But think of it as a bigger picture. It'll lead you to your goal of being able to be more creative, being able to then draw out of yourself. So let's say I want to draw this mug, and then I always have to look at it and I just copy paste, so to say. Later on, once I've memorized the way of drawing it, I can later on perform it myself, like out of my mind, and I can just draw mugs with ease because I've practiced it. Alright, and the last subject that I want to tackle, kind of more on the critical side, which leaves a lot of people worried and makes them doubtful. Is there even creativity? Is it even worth it? Is there even a future for artists? aka the rise of AI, the downfall of artists. Obviously, it is a danger to creative jobs. And I've also been quite concerned about this. AI can write stories. AI can create art. AI can now produce music. And that is very, very concerning, and also leaves a lot of people at risk because they fear that in the future they'll be replaced. Their skills will no longer be necessary. What do I say to that? Creativity is a tool. I used to be quite pessimistic, but then I've learned the insight that you can use AI to your advantage, but you should never give up on your tool. Creativity being your tool, it is something that you have been given or you can enhance to use it. Don't give up on it. It's something you've been given and it's something you should use. Simple as that. And using it yourself is fun. If you worry about it no longer being profitable, fear not. For now, there's always areas in which you can still make a profit out of it. You can even utilize the upgrades, that we've been provided with, and use it to your advantage and already create out of yourself and add onto it with AI. I by no means support artists that use AI artwork and then say that it was them who created it. I'm completely against that, but know then that as an artist, for example, I'm sure that there's always a way. If you want to be a digital artist and profit, there will be always people who support you. For example, just start doing furry art if you want to profit. The furries, man, they've got your back, alright? They always, they're rich and they'll always pay for commissions. And in other areas, creativity is just what makes us human. AI will not be able to represent the feeling, that the thought that goes within it, the thought that you have put in, and the proudness that you feel out of it. So, as long as you can create, I recommend you do create. You use your skill simply out of the fact that it's fun and it's a great tool to have overall. I wouldn't completely rely on the fact that AI will take over everything. So always remain hopeful. AI it also relates to other areas in your life, not only creativity, so it shouldn't be the biggest concern. There's also like just intellectual jobs, so to say, that it just solves things for you, and you know that there's much more to it. It's not only just simple mathematics, but also at times it just needs a human's touch. It needs the input of a human, and not everything can be done by AI this far, and there's always a person that has to control it at the moment. So you want to develop your skills, do it. Do not let that be something that demotivates you. Just go for it. Have fun with the things that you create. That is the most important thing. And I hope that this video has helped you a bit to try and enhance that creativity in a world where it might just die out. But as long as there are people like you who are interested in being creative and uphold that standard and continue thriving, then I believe that we'll have plenty of room for creativity and we'll witness many interesting things. Yeah, thank you for listening. Make sure to let me know which one of these things was kind of useful, if you have experienced one of these things. And if you have any doubts about this, you can also discuss it in the comments. That was it.